yeah, we are back again, and before we even talk about this watch, I want to read off some specs for you. A rugged military build, 1.5-inch AMOLED touch-enabled display that is super bright, full mapping and navigation, 170 sport profiles and modes, a dive certification so you can actually take this thing scuba diving. It even has a microphone on board for voice control. Oh yeah, and it has 3 weeks of battery life, and one more thing, it costs $299. That's right, today we're going to be talking about the Amazfit T-Rex 3, and on paper, this watch is kind of shocking because all of the specs that it lists off are very similar to this watch. This is the Garmin Fenix 8. Now the Garmin Fenix 8 is an incredible watch, and I have reviewed it on this channel. If you haven't seen that yet, go watch that video too. But the difference between these two watches is that despite them looking very similar on their spec sheets, their price is ridiculously different. The Garmin Fenix 8 here starts at $1,000 and goes all the way up to $1,200 here in the USA, while this new Amazfit T-Rex 3 comes in at just $299. I've been testing out the new Amazfit T-Rex 3 for a couple of weeks now, wearing it every day, sleeping with it, and using it as a smartwatch, as well as going on my daily runs with it. But the question is, does it deliver on all that it promises? Because it does promise quite a bit, and that's what I intend to unravel in this video today. With that intro out of the way, let's dive into the first topic. That's going to be the design, the build quality, the pricing, and the options. And as I mentioned already, when it comes to the price, this watch comes in at $299 here in the USA at the time of launch. As for options, that's pretty simple because there's only one version of this watch. It is this black gray color here with a black silicone band, and they call this color Onyx. Now let's talk about the design and the build quality and the hardware. The first thing you're going to notice about the Amazfit T-Rex 3 here is that it's not a round watch, but it's also not a square watch. This is the first time I've seen an octagon-shaped watch, and it's a very distinctive look. I honestly, when I took this out of the box, I didn't love the way it looked, but it's starting to grow on me now. This watch comes in at 48 millimeters in diameter, and that's pretty much the same size as the middle-of-the-road 47 millimeter diameter Fenix 8 I have here. And again, when I flip these two watches on their sides here, you can see that the thickness is pretty similar too, where the new Amazfit T-Rex 3 comes in at 13.8 millimeters thick. When it comes to the actual build quality, yes, we do have a metal bezel on the front here. This is not plastic, and it does feel pretty robust. This metal bezel does protect the lens quite well. As you can see, it does have a little raised lip to it, and that's a good thing because the T-Rex 3 here does have a Gorilla Glass lens, and that's one major difference compared to the more expensive Garmin Fenix 8 here, which does have a sapphire lens, which is very scratch resistant. Flipping the watch over to its backside here, you're going to notice the new optical heart rate sensor. Amazfit calls this their BioTracker PPG biometric sensor. That's a mouthful, but it does support SpO2 or blood oxygen saturation as well. I'm not going to spoil the accuracy test just yet, but just know that this is doing a much, much better job than the old version. We'll talk more on that in a minute. And when it comes to sensors inside the Amazfit T-Rex 3, other than the heart rate sensor, you do have an accelerometer, a gyro, a compass, a barometric altimeter, and depth sensor. And fun fact, the Amazfit T-Rex 3 also supports external Bluetooth sensors. So if you have a heart rate monitor, like a ECG chest strap here, or even a bike power meter or something like that, you can pair those up to your watch without a problem. Another thing you might notice on the back of the watch here is these two little contacts up at the top here. That is for charging, and they've actually changed the way the charging works. In the past, Amazfit always shipped this charger. This was a universal charger for all of their watches, and as you can see on the Amazfit T-Rex 2 here, this just magnetically clips on the back and it charges your watch. It did the job just fine. However, this time around, Amazfit has moved to this little magnetic puck, which I actually do like. So the way this works is it simply just magnetically sticks onto the back of the watch just like that. There's only one way to put it on, and it kind of just guides itself into place. There's no guesswork about it. And then you can plug any USB-C charging cable into the side here. Now let's talk about the included band on the Amazfit T-Rex 3. As you can see here, it is a silicone band. It's pre-curved. It's got sort of a contoured wrist shape to it. It's really comfortable and it's actually pretty stretchy. But I know a lot of you out there like to swap out your bands, and this was one major complaint I had on previous versions of the T-Rex model. On the last generation, like on this T-Rex Ultra here, you can see that the band was actually non-removable. It had these proprietary screws on it. Jumping back to the Amazfit T-Rex 3 here, you can see that they're actually using the same screws, those same proprietary screws. However, this time around, the band is removable because they include this inside the box. You can see inside here, you've got this tiny little tool, and what this is is actually a little screwdriver. You can see now I can use this tool and actually unscrew the band. I'm not gonna unscrew it all the way because I don't want it to fall apart during this video, but you get the idea. The other thing that they included in the box are these little plastic adapters. And what these allow you to do is you remove the stock band, you put these adapters in using the screws, and then after you install the adapter, you can use any standard 22mm quick release band. But that's enough about bands. Let's move on to the next topic in the build quality segment, and that is that dive certification. That's the EN 13319 certification for single gas diving down to 45 meters. If that certification sounds familiar, it's because it's the same certification that the Garmin Fenix 8 and the Apple Watch Ultra have. And that puts the Amazfit T-Rex 3 in a very small group of sport watches that are now dive certified, which is super cool. And funny enough, it's actually dive rated for 5 more meters in depth compared to the Fenix 8. I wonder why they did that. So now if you dive into your activity list here, which has 170 different sports you can choose from, you can see there's a couple of new dive options. You've got outdoor free diving and indoor free diving. I didn't know indoor diving was a thing, but I'm not a diver, so I wouldn't know that. But if you jump up to outdoor free diving, you can see here there's a little guy swimming. I can customize my data pages. I can choose my water type, whether that be freshwater or seawater. And I've got auto detection if you want it to kick on automatically when you enter the water. And of course, I can fully customize my data pages in the Dive app if I dive into the data page setting here. Even though I'm not a scuba diver, I did test the Amazfit T-Rex 3 here in my test chamber, which can actually simulate water pressure of up to, I think, 150 meters. So I simulated depths of over 40 meters, and the Amazfit T-Rex 3 held up fine. It gave me a real-time depth readout, and it's pretty cool. Hey there, quick interruption. If you're enjoying this video so far, I would really appreciate it if you drop down and give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel down below, because it turns out like 80% of you are not subscribed. What are you doing? Please subscribe, just go do it. And after you're subscribed, make sure to check out the links in the description down below that do help support this channel, but cost nothing extra to you, okay? Back to the video. Now let's talk about the display on the Amazfit T-Rex 3. As you can see here, it's a big, bright AMOLED display. In fact, this display is 1.5 inches, which is slightly larger and higher resolution than the Garmin Fenix 8 here. Another feature of this display is that it is super bright. It gets up to 2000 nits of brightness, which is bright enough for just about any situation. Even out in direct sunlight while you're running, you can see the display of the watch pretty easily. This display also has an ambient light sensor underneath it that will pick up the environmental lighting that you're in and adjust the brightness accordingly. And just like some of the competition, the Amazfit T-Rex 3 also has a dark mode. So if you toggle this little setting here, it turns everything red on the display, as you can see there. Another thing you might have noticed so far on the Amazfit T-Rex 3 is the overall user interface responsiveness. You can see it's super fast. There's really no lag at all. Everything's really smooth scrolling and very functional and responsive. And honestly, in a lot of ways, it's even more responsive than something like my Garmin here, which again is a very expensive watch. If I scroll through the widgets on both these watches, you can see that the animations and everything are just a little bit smoother. And just like every Amazfit watch out there, the Amazfit T-Rex 3 syncs up with the Zepp app on your phone. And the Zepp app is also where you will aggregate all of your data from your sleep metrics to your wellness metrics like the readiness score, and all of your activities and workouts will sync there as well. And from there, you can also sync them to third-party services like Strava. Another huge advantage to the Amazfit ecosystem is the compatibility with their smart ring. So here I have the Amazfit Helio ring, and I have a full review of this on my channel if you want to go check that out. But what this is a little smart ring. It's got a heart rate sensor in there and various other sensors, and it's capable of tracking your all-day health and wellness metrics. So if you do decide to take your watch off, or you only want to wear a watch when you're out on your epic adventures, you can do that and still collect your sleep and readiness score and all of that other data from the ring without wearing the watch, which is super cool and very unique. There's really no one else out there other than Samsung with their ring and their watches that's doing this. Now that we've talked about the ecosystem, let's do a quick walkthrough of the watch. If you have a previous Amazfit watch, you'll be right at home here because the user interface is very similar to previous models. If I scroll down from the watch face here, I drop into these tiles that shows my date and all of my stats, along with some quick toggles to jump to various things like the weather. If I just tap and hold on the watch face here, I can scroll through various other options. There's a lot of really cool looking watch faces here. And on top of that, you can also download additional watch faces from the Zepp app and sync them over to the watch. And there's a ton to choose from. If I swipe down from the top of the screen, you've got all of your quick settings here. You can use the flashlight, which puts the screen on max brightness, 2000 nits. As you can see, it's blindingly bright. Going back to the watch face here, if you tap the top right button, that'll bring you directly into your activities list. And as you can see, there are way too many activities to list off here. You get all the basics from running and hiking and riding a bike or swimming, but then there's a lot of like really niche activities in here. And here I just started a run activity. And as you can see, there's a new landing page here that shows your GPS connection, which I don't have one because I'm indoors now, your heart rate, you get a little guy running, and then you can scroll down and you can go to the other settings as well. You can do like some training tools here. You've got navigation, which we'll touch on more in a minute. And just like I said before with the diving feature, all of these data pages are fully customizable. And the cool thing about running in particular is that the running activity does actually collect a bunch of advanced training metrics, including running power. So that's the activity menu. But if I tap the back button once down here, that drops us into our app menu. So you've got your workout history here. If I tap in on that, I'll see all of my previous runs. I've got Zepp Coach, which is like an AI-driven workout creator, which I haven't really dug too deep on yet. Below that, you've got your workout status, where you can actually see your training load for the week. You can swipe over, you get your estimated VO2 max here, which again, looks a little bit low for me. And if you swipe over again, you get a recovery advisor. Scrolling down again, we've got the readiness score, and I've talked about this in other videos. So the readiness score is very similar to a lot of other platforms out there, whether that be Garmin's Body Battery or Oura Ring with their readiness score. It's trying to give you an idea of how well rested you are from the previous night of sleep and how much energy you have to take on the day ahead. Back to the app list here, and if we scroll down further, we've got another new feature here called Heart Rate Push. If I click on this, it'll actually allow you to broadcast your heart rate from the Amazfit T-Rex 3 to any nearby Bluetooth device. That could be your phone, that could be a treadmill at the gym if you want to see the heart rate data up there on the dashboard. But another cool thing about Amazfit watches is that if you go down and click on more, there's a whole bunch of other stuff. There's a sun and moon widget here, which will show the sunrise and sunset. Below that, we've got cycle tracking for women's health. Scrolling down again is a stopwatch, a timer, a find my phone option. So if you lose your phone, you can click on this. And then there's voice memos. Now this is pretty interesting because again, voice memos is a feature that Garmin just rolled out on their Fenix 8 here. So right now I'm recording a voice memo on the Amazfit T-Rex 3, and the audio you're hearing right now is coming from that microphone. The quality is actually pretty good, but unfortunately there is no speaker located on the T-Rex 3. So if you do record something on it, you do have to have earbuds paired to the watch to hear it played back. However, you can actually retrieve these recordings from the watch itself from within the Amazfit Zepp app. You can download these voice recordings directly to your phone if you want to listen to them there. Pretty interesting feature, not something I'll use all the time, but if I do want to remember something on the fly, this is really nice to have. Other than the voice memo app, there's actually a whole bunch of other apps you can use on the T-Rex 3. For example, this camera remote app that comes pre-installed, and this is surprisingly useful. This actually does work with the iPhone, by the way. I have an iPhone 15 Pro here, and if I click the little round circle there, you can see that my iPhone just took a picture. And when it comes to apps, there's actually a whole bunch more you can download within the Zepp app on your phone within the App Store. Okay, now that we've covered all the apps and the user experience, let's talk more about that microphone, because it's not just used for that voice memo app. That's where the Zepp Flow feature comes in. So what Zepp Flow is sort of an AI assistant built directly into this watch. For example, you can open up Zepp Flow and say something like, set a 5-minute timer. And you can see there, within a couple of seconds, a 5-minute timer has started. Another cool thing about Zepp Flow and the voice controls is that you can map them to a long press of one of the buttons. For me, I've set that up for the select button here. If I press and hold that, you can see the little icon at the bottom there. What's the weather today? You can see there, it's actually reading out the weather on the screen. It says it's sunny and the current temperature is 24 C in Lowell with a high temperature around 26 C today. If I scroll down, it actually opened up the weather widget as well to give me even more detail about the weather. What can I tell you to do? You can ask me to control music, check your training plan, get real-time workout data, look at your to-do list, make a phone call, or reply to a message. I'm assuming that reply to message thing only works on Android phones because it's not compatible with iPhones, but pretty cool. However, there is one downside to the voice commands on the Amazfit T-Rex 3, and that it's isolated to Zepp Flow on the watch itself. This watch cannot interact with Siri on my iPhone or Google Assistant. Another downside to the microphone though is that you can't use it for phone calls either. This is really only for on-device purposes. Now let's talk about navigation and mapping, because the T-Rex 3 is designed to be a purpose-built, outdoorsy, hiking, trail running, climbing watch, and because of that, it does have navigation and mapping on board, and it's surprisingly good. So the way mapping works on the Amazfit T-Rex 3 is that you will first download the map to the watch using your phone. There's an interface where you can select a pretty big area on a map. Another cool thing about the Amazfit T-Rex 3 is that you can select what maps you want to install. Here you can see that I have a base map, a ski map, and a contour map, and that last part's important. If you're a hiker or trail runner or someone like that, you know what a contour map is. It lets you know what kind of elevation is ahead. After you've synced the map from your phone to your watch, which does not take very long by the way, you can do one of two things. You can either open up the map app here, which will just display the map, or you can start an activity like a run or hike or something like that, where you will get a map data page in that activity. So as you can see here, I'm within the map app, and you can see the map data underneath there is super detailed, like way more detailed than a lot of the competition, except for Garmin, which probably has the best maps out there. But all of the others like Suunto, Coros, Polar, their maps kind of pale in comparison to this Amazfit map. If I zoom in a little bit further, you see even more detail, like each road has a label on it to tell you what road it is. You can see there it says Pleasant Street on that road. Another thing you might notice as I scroll around the map here is just how fast it renders. Whatever they're using for a CPU under the hood is super fast. There is no lag as I scroll through the map here. It's like using a map on a smartphone. And if I zoom in, you can see that there's even labels on the trails. As you can see there in this little forest area, it says Helen's Trail there, and you've got Harold's Trail there. So yeah, lots of detail, contour lines, map labels, trail labels, road labels. Honestly, the maps on these Amazfit watches have come a long way. When it comes to the maps on the Amazfit T-Rex 3, even though they are really detailed, they're still not routable. If you do want routable maps, that's really where Garmin shines, where you can create routes directly on the watch without needing a phone or anything like that. With that being said, you can still follow a route or create a course with the Amazfit T-Rex 3. You just have to do it on your phone before you leave for your epic adventure. And then when you go to start an activity, for example, outdoor running here, you've got an option for My Route. And if I click on that, you can see here it says Tewksbury running with 5 miles. And now we've got the route loaded and the map page up. And as you can see, that red line there is my intended route. And if I was running this, you would see a little blue arrow indicating my location along that red route. This watch does have turn-by-turn directions. So if you come up to a right-hand turn, a little arrow pops up on the bottom of the screen that indicates a right-hand turn is coming and how far away it is from your location. Okay, now that we've talked about navigation and mapping, let's talk about GPS accuracy and GPS modes, because it's also pretty impressive on the Amazfit T-Rex 3. This watch is dual band or multi-band enabled, and it means that it can use 2 frequencies, the L1 and the L5 frequency, to establish your position. With that being said, there is a whole bunch of different modes you can choose when it comes to GPS accuracy. There's accurate mode for the most accuracy, there's single band mode or for reduced accuracy but longer battery life, and then there's an automatic mode that will switch modes depending on your situation. With that being said, let's talk about accuracy on the Amazfit T-Rex 3, and I'm gonna be honest, I was kind of surprised here. I've tested a lot of Amazfit watches in the past, and on the early days of Amazfit watches, their GPS accuracy, honestly, it was not very good. The T-Rex 3 here, in my testing so far, has been performing really well, and honestly, right in line with my Garmin Forerunner 965, my Fenix 8 here, that are all multi-band enabled and some of the best on the market. Obviously, not perfect, none of these watches are, but it's right up there and doing a really good job in terms of GPS accuracy. Now that we've talked about GPS accuracy and modes, we need to talk about battery life because they sort of go hand in hand. The T-Rex 3 claims in typical use up to 27 days. That's with default settings out of the box. and that is with the always on display turned off. Now, if you do want the always on display, that'll take a bigger hit in battery life. That brings it down to more like 10 to 13 days. But again, that is still a really long time to have a watch with an always on display. And within the settings of the watch, you can actually dive into the battery manager here and get some stats about your battery. You can see right now, I have 65% left on the battery, and it hasn't been charged in 6 days. It's been 6 days, and I still have 65% left, even though I've been using this watch every single day and going on pretty long runs with it. Now, if you scroll down in the battery manager here, you do have a bunch of settings. Toggling these on or off will give you more or less battery life. I don't think I'll get 27 days out of a single charge on this watch, but I think I will get like 2 weeks on a single charge, judging by what I've seen so far. I'm using it pretty heavily, and again, I haven't even killed half the battery in 6 days. Pretty good. But that's only half of the story when it comes to battery life, because we haven't talked about GPS on battery life on the T-Rex 3, and this watch is an outdoorsy, hiking, trail running watch. That's where it's gonna count. So on the Amazfit T-Rex 3, in high accuracy GPS mode, you'll get 42 hours on a single charge. That's kind of bonkers. That is the full-blown, most accurate mode on the Amazfit T-Rex 3. Plenty enough time to run something like a 100-miler. Not only that, but if you do want to save some battery life and reduce your accuracy just slightly, you can drop into single-band mode in power save GPS mode, and that mode will give you 72 hours on a single charge. And again, in my real-life experience, I've been using the accurate mode for the most part, and it's stacking up with their claims so far. This watch is doing really well in the battery life department. The final topic I want to address in this video is the heart rate sensor, the optical heart rate sensor on the back of the Amazfit T-Rex 3. And as you can see, again, it is a different heart rate sensor compared to the previous T-Rex Ultra on the right side of the screen here. Let me be frank here. In the past, I've tested out a whole bunch of different Amazfit watches, and they've always had one thing in common. They have a great user interface, there's no lag, they're really responsive, but the heart rate data has never been good. But I have good news here, and I'm honestly kind of shocked, because on the Amazfit T-Rex 3, it's been giving me really good results. You can see for yourself in pretty much every track I'm showing you on the screen here that it is right in line with my ECG sensor that I use as a baseline of comparison. And I was actually confused for a minute. I thought I accidentally paired the ECG sensor to the Amazfit watch, but that wasn't the case. All this data is from the optical sensor on the back of the watch. So it seems like Amazfit has finally cracked the code on how to get good heart rate sensor accuracy from their watches, and this is one example of that. I'm pretty impressed, and that's a sentence I didn't think I would say. When it comes to heart rate sensor accuracy though, let me just state the obvious in that I am a sample of one. I am one person, I've only tested this watch on myself, and your results may vary. That's the thing with optical heart rate sensors, things like tattoos, things like the color of your skin, the hair density, your body fat percentage, all of that stuff plays a role on how accurate these sensors are, along with how tight you can crank down that strap. So even though I got good results, take this with a grain of salt, do your own testing, and maybe watch some other reviews out there, but for me, I'm shocked. And that brings us to the final section of this video, final thoughts and conclusions. Who is the Amazfit T-Rex 3 for? At $299, the features of this watch are kind of hard to believe. You've got a rugged build, it's dive rated, dive capable, it's got insane battery life, you could run a 100-miler with it and still have battery left over, voice commands, it's got training load, estimated VO2 max, mapping and navigation with real labels on the map to let you know what trail or road you're on. And the crazy part of all of this is the price. At $299, the T-Rex 3 is kind of an incredible value for what you're getting. If I had to be critical and nitpick, there are some things I don't like about the T-Rex 3, like I wish it had a sapphire glass lens instead of Gorilla Glass. At this price, that's hard to argue. And some of the training and wellness tools are a little bit wonky in my opinion. For example, the estimated VO2 max is a little bit low. The training load feature is a little bit wonky, and things like your sleeping and readiness score always seem a little bit generous. But I think you could get over that at this price. So I guess I'd word it like this. If you're already in an ecosystem like Garmin, Coros, Polar, whatever, it's going to be a tough transition to move to the T-Rex 3. Not impossible, but it's a little bit of a pain point. On the other hand, if you're entirely new to smartwatches and you're shopping for the first time, and you're on a bit of a budget and you want a bunch of features like mapping and navigation and really good battery life, this one's hard to beat. I'm I'm out of words on it. I'm impressed. And that's really it. That's the end of this video. And if you're still watching this video, you probably liked it. And if you did like it, I would really appreciate it if you went down and gave me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel down below so you don't miss more content like this in the future. And while you're down there, make sure to drop into the description down below where I'll have links over to the Amazfit T-Rex 3, I'll have links for the Fenix 8 and all the other Amazfit stuff out there. Check out those links, use those links because they do help support this channel and they cost nothing extra to you. And after you check out the product links, make sure to check out all of my other social media accounts. I've got my podcast, my Threads account, my Strava account, Instagram. Follow me on all the things. And finally, check out my merch store over at ChaseTheSummit.com where you can pick up a sweet shirt like this. It's actually a lot cooler looking in the back. And we did it. That's the end. This one's shockingly good. Shockingly good for 300 bucks. All right, that's the end. Bye.